Hey YouTube, how's it going? We're back with another banging video, and today, as per the title, I'll be showing you guys how do pro gamers study VODs, how do they find VODs, how do they go about preparing against players with these VODs, and all the nice cheeky websites you can use to do that. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so the first thing, at least that I do, and this is like a really, really good way of just finding out stuff in regards to tournaments, is we're going to open eligilac.com, and it might take a little bit to load. It's a little bit slower. And shout out to guys at Eligilac. Of course, this is an amazing website, and I'm sure many of you know this. I've seen it on Reddit. I've seen commentators mention it. Here we got our current top 10. Now let's say that I'm interested in a particular player. So maybe I have no idea about any tournaments that have gone on recently. All I know is that there's certain players out or certain players that I like watching, and I want to see if they've played any recent games. So let's just do Clem. So let's click on Clem here. Right. So like I said, it might take a little bit to load. We have all the stats. If you look here, it just doesn't actually tell us which tournaments they've played in, but we can kind of get a quick gauge of just anything we want to watch. So, for example, I see Clem 2-0 Aerog Fire, Clem 2-0 for Jumi. This seems like would be kind of cool to watch. Or 2-0 Jiro, that's also pretty cool. So, if I'm interested in any of these matches, then what I can do next is go here to match history. And again, this is going to take a little bit to load. But after loading into match history, it'll actually tell you which tournaments these matches were played in. Okay, so this is going to be the first step into finding out which games you want to watch. So here, okay, Wardy TV Christmas Invitational. These matches were played in this tournament. These were played in the ESL Open Cup. This is the Elima League Invitational Finals. So now we have a really, really good just layout. And you can see it's actually just endless, right? It tells you the dates and everything. So let's say we want to watch the Wardy Christmas Invitational. What we're going to do then is we're going to go open another tab. We're going to go SC2 links. Okay, usually I just Google it and then it comes up. So SC2 links, first link here. And shout out again to SC2 links, another great resource, and it's actually relatively new. So we can go. And there's also another one actually, guys, called Starcraft 2 Casts. I do want to say that there is another website that you can use, and this one also, it tells you what's added today. You can search, it has got the events, but personally, I like using SC2 links. And okay, Wardy Christmas Invitational number 6 right here. Cool. So now that we've had this open, it actually allows you to reveal the links, right? So reveal the links, and then here are all the games that it's given us so far. So obviously they haven't added everything here. This is just Group B. So either the tournament has not concluded yet, or they're just adding some of the stuff. But this is what they have, and unfortunately we don't see that Clem game there, which is fine. But these are the options that are available. And maybe it's also been mislabeled. We can go to the Christmas Day games. Let's reveal that. Also not on here. But again, you can kind of see how that all works out. So again, pretty straightforward. They're super simple. But let's just now open an example. So let's say we want to watch ESL Open Cup 155, which was played on the new patch, I believe. So we'll find the ESL Open Cups. There you go. Let's reveal. And this one will only tell you the VODs, but it don't actually tell you the matches, which is a bit unfortunate, but that means you'll have to put some work. But timestamp for you. Shout out Steadfast. I'm ripping off your content, but I'm sure the lad wouldn't mind too much. So thank you, Steadfast. But let's just quickly look at this. So now here comes the preparation, right? So here, Baby Marine. I'm kind of going through. Okay, Gumiho versus Baby Marine. Nice. Maybe I'm looking for TVT content. Okay, maybe I'm trying to learn some TVT. So if we take a quick look here, we have a 2 Reaper opener from Gumiho. Now, Gumiho is most likely playing this game on ping, which is a good idea to kind of keep in mind because that might explain the opener that he chose, right? Maybe Gumiho doesn't actually play this safe. Maybe he's just doing this because he's playing on lag and he doesn't want to die to a proxy 2x. Very fair. So as soon as you load into these games and you look at the player names, you want to think about other circumstances involved. This may not necessarily mean that the build that Gumiho is doing is very optimal. It could just mean that he's doing this just because he wants to be safe. And maybe, even though he doesn't prefer it, if he feels like he just doesn't die in the early game, then he'll be completely fine and he'll win. And that's a fair way of thinking about it, especially if you feel like you are the better player, but you have this disadvantage where you're playing on ping, right? So in this case, going to go for that. 2 racks, Reaper. Okay, and I kind of skim them through a little bit, and just like the early game is a bit straightforward for me, but of course, if you want to pay attention to the early game, you also can. We can pay attention to how many Reapers he builds here, which looks like he only built 2 and added a factory, and now he starts the Marines. Okay, so he only builds 2. Usually I see people build about 3, and then they go into Marines, but in this case here, it's just going to be 2, a couple of Marines, reactor, and okay, so he's transitioning into what looks like a sort of 2-1-1 kind of thing, and Baby Marine is going to tank drop. So thinking about this now, let's think about this. Baby Marine is going to tank drop, right? Or at least he's building a tank. He may have forgotten the medevac or he doesn't have gas, but it just looks like it's going to be tank drop. Actually, let's confirm that first. Okay, so it is. So how does that work in this scenario? Well, it kind of makes sense, right? This may not actually be what Baby Marine was thinking about doing originally, but upon scouting the 2 barracks opener, felt that this was the correct decision to make. Okay, so again, let's not think about this like this. It could also be that he just was planning on doing this anyway, but we want to consider all options when studying games because we really don't want to get caught into like, well, this build must be good because so and so did it, and then you do it in a ladder game, and it's like, well, why the fuck doesn't it work? And it's like you really, really, really have to consider the context of the scenario, of the games, of the scenarios, of the players, especially if you're studying pro games. And this is something that I can't stress enough because there's so much metagaming involved in pro games. You know, if it's you can always tell the standard builds, right? 360 Hellion Banshee, perfect sense. Then maybe the next game, after playing 360 Hellion Banshee, a player does like a Hellbat push. Well, why did they do that Hellbat push? Maybe the Zerg player doesn't do certain Overlord scouting or cuts a corner or something like that, you know? So you have to really, really, really capture all the context involved so you don't kind of get scammed into thinking that a certain build or a certain response is good when in reality that may not even be the case, right? So again, let's just quickly look at this tank drop. Okay, well I can see what Baby Marine wanted to do, but you can kind of tell how Gumiho just has so much stuff that plus the Raven that it makes it a bit difficult to actually do damage. But oh, here you go, and he actually finds an opening, gets the medevac matrix though, and unfortunately it does lose out on everything. So this is clearly a bit of a disaster. However, you know, Baby Marine does have a faster third. He's adding on extra production a bit earlier, and Gumiho is like going to medevac drop with this. So, and I think Baby Marine may have seen that reactor. So, you know, Gumiho does play a little bit weird. And again, you gotta also think about that too. Like maybe what Gumiho doing maybe isn't actually as good as we think, but because it's Gumiho, this is definitely something that Gumiho would do, right? So I gotta always think about that. And we're transitioning to bias. Looks like the game is kind of panning out here. They're taking map vision. Gumiho's being a lot more aggressive, which makes a lot of sense because he's going to have way more Marines than his opponent. The downside for Gumiho is that he's missing a Raven. And if Baby Marine, for example, wanted to build Reactor Vikings, he would have the air superiority. But oftentimes in the early game, that may not matter as much, especially if you catch your opponent at a position where you can catch them on siege and overwhelm their Marine count with your own Marine count or something like that. So, and it looks like that's actually what Gumiho is going to do here, or try to do anyway. All right, so just going to push on in here. There's a supply down, or call down. Pretty tough there. And actually, Baby Marine is going to crush this, seems like. Okay, and then here, when you think about this, this makes perfect sense, right? Baby Marine has 2 Ravens with the full matrix, and Gumiho does not. So this is a little bit of like Gumiho maybe not respecting Baby Marine as much, or maybe just not thinking about this as an option. But this is why this fight goes so bad for Gumiho. So maybe now what we can do is mentally, you know, take mental notes or even write it down. If we're in this scenario, if I wanted to play the 2 racks opener that Gumiho is, and I'm in the scenario, maybe if my opponent has 2 Ravens, I'll consider being a bit more patient or a bit more passive. And because of that matrix disadvantage that I have. So that could be a mental note that I take, and that's something that I can learn from these games. You know, whether Gumiho loses or wins, it's nice to know. And nice to see what also you should probably try to avoid. This is a very good drop as well. And Gumiho is pretty aggressive these days, so he likes taking control of the game. And you can see here, I actually gets Doom dropped to Oblivion. And now we get kind of this base trade scenario. And it looks like Gumiho is continuously expanding. He's continuously getting upgrades. And that initial Marine advantage here, you could tell it's really working out because Gumiho had that +2 attack a bit earlier, so it was actually like +2 attack, +1 armor against 1/1 from Baby Marine, and that makes a big difference in the TVT fights. Unfortunately, it does look here that Baby Marine's a bit dead. However, this maneuvering with the medevac is very good. Now, I'm not like thoroughly watching this game. I just want to make this video too long, but I just really want to show you guys more or less how you want to take a look at these. And he's pushing. Yeah, Gumiho is stabilizing really well here. So it looks like Baby Marine's on a timer. And if Baby Marine doesn't commit to a big push or maybe a base trade, he's kind of dead. And you know what? Gumiho's army, yeah, it looks so big. Baby Marine does clean up everything in the main. But yeah, he just doesn't have enough at home to defend or to fight his army. So unfortunately, doesn't really work out. But that's going to go ahead and conclude this video, guys. So I'll include the links of the resources that I use below. But really, that's all I do. You know, replay packs you can find on Twitter and stuff like that. If that's what you're interested in. ESL, the ESL's Twitter, ESL SC2 Twitter, Home Story Cup Twitter, which is like Take TV, at Take TV. There's also places you can find replay packs, even TL.net. I also had those too, and I should have mentioned that a bit earlier. But yeah, so that's going to be it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe, boost my algorithm, please. Thank you. And if you like more content like this, it does not necessarily revolve around in-game gameplay, feel free to let me know, and I hope to do more.